All right, good afternoon, everyone. I have 3 o'clock showing, so we'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate you all being able to join us today. We are here for the Career Planning for Graduation and Beyond virtual series, the 3 o'clock session. I have started the recording. I am Erin Curtis with State Support Team Region 11 in Central Ohio. And joining us today, we have Wesley Alvarez. Wesley Alvarez is a cybersecurity and technology enthusiast with a passion for education. He has been working in secondary and post-secondary education environments for over 15 years, focusing on career-based cybersecurity courses and program development. His experience includes a national and global cybersecurity program design and implementation across leading colleges and universities offering cybersecurity degrees and stackable credentials. Wesley is the creator of the globally recognized EC Council Academia Partner Program. This program supports a network of over 2,000 secondary and post-secondary institutions across the world that focus on career-based education, certification, stackable credentials, accelerated workforce pathways, and hands-on education, disruptive learning environments, cyber competitions, and more. After today's session, we will upload the video of today's recording to the Google site. Here is the QR code for you to access that again. You can pin it in your web page browser. And I will now pass it off to Wesley.
Thank you so much, Erin. I appreciate that introduction and such a pleasure to be here today. Thank you all for attending as well. As Erin mentioned, my name is Wesley Alvarez. I'm the Director of Academics here in Tampa, Florida, in sunny Tampa, Florida. So I look forward to sharing a lot of valuable information with you over the next, I'd say, about 45 minutes or so as we walk through the Essential series and some of the actual certifications by EC Council. So ultimately, what I hope you'll get out of this session is some free takeaways in terms of cybersecurity education courses, also how those courses and where those courses are represented on the state's industry recognized credentials list. And we're going to focus on about 3 of those specifically. This way, we can know how to get started within cybersecurity and really in what domain. That's a big question we get in all different areas of education. So whether it's junior high, high school, or post-secondary, a lot of times we're asked as a cybersecurity certification body, how do we get started and where do we get started? So we're going to get some good answers to that question today. But again, really appreciate you being here and tuning in for this session. So again, I'm in Tampa, Florida. I have the privilege of overseeing the EC Council Academic Division. That is the academia arm of EC Council. For those of you that don't know, EC Council is a cybersecurity certification body and an EdTech organization. So we were originally started in 2001, where we invented the certified ethical hacker that was also really brought to the industry in 2003 after it was developed and designed. So what you're seeing here is really a timeline of the company's history. We had received a number of accreditations, specifically the U.S. Department of Defense DoD accreditation for what was then the 8570 DoD directive, what is now known today as the 8140 directive, that hosts EC Council certifications and other industry recognized credentials that are vetted and positioned in a specific category and segment by the U.S. government to train government employees. And we've also launched a number of certifications that are tactical based in nature. So those are covering things like incident response, network defense, penetration testing, digital forensics, disaster recovery, and really the list goes on. We have over 20 credentials to date that are all industry recognized credentials as EC Council as the certification body. And then we do all of the EdTech design and development ourselves. So authoring the content, authoring the job task analysis, the standards for each course, the mapping, which is especially important to students that are going through an EC Council course, because we want to show a clear delineation from where those knowledge, skills, and tasks, so to speak, are aligned to the workforce today and how it's going to help them get a job or prepare for a job or an interview. And then finally, just in recent years, our focus has been cybersecurity skill development. So how do we take the practical application of cybersecurity, what a student or a professional has learned in a knowledge course environment, has proven that knowledge, but ultimately putting that knowledge to practice. So a large part of that has been focused on experiential learning into cyber ranges and different types of lab technologies, even capture the flag competitions as a means of our experiential learning element that we help encourage students to participate in, to test their skills and really get some valuable information of where their skills are. So that's a little bit about us, and really what we're hoping to accomplish, again, is some clear visibility into the certifications that are approved at the state level. And once more, before we move on, I wanted to mention what really got us here as a certification body and also as a standards body. There's a number of accreditations that EC Council carries. I'd mentioned the U.S. Department of Defense, but there's also the ANAB accreditation, if you're familiar with the practices for psychometric sound exams and processes surrounding certification through the American National Standards Institute. We work extensively with other governments and ministries, including our own National Security Agency and GCHQ in the United Kingdom, as well as a number of other initiatives in alignment to the National Initiative of Cybersecurity Education, which is our U.S. government's definition of cybersecurity job roles as it pertains to the National Security Agency and the Department of Homeland Security. So a big portion of our courses are alignment and mapping to those standards. So now to preface that, we know that cybersecurity is tremendously interesting to students, and that really the interest is growing. So when we talk about a cybersecurity crisis, we're seeing this in the news every day. We're seeing this all over the industry. We're seeing it impact businesses from large corporations to small corporations. And really, it's happening consistently down to the very second. So our goal is, if we can take the curiosity of students, provide an ethical layer on there, and provide them the opportunity to practice in safe and secure environments, that's going to set them up for success. So EC Council was really founded on the notion of, to beat a hacker, you need to think like a hacker. So our motto is really, and our focus is really retooling and re-engineering the mindset to say, all right, there's all these malicious practices out there. As a student, how do I learn these in a safe and secure environment? How do I understand the tactics and the strategies from what we call black hat hackers, so I can set up my own security defenses and be an asset to help secure my organization, whether it's a specific software or data or website, and so on and so forth. So really, with all of these revealing statistics, and a lot of that being human error, we're focused on upskilling the first line of defense, and that's really what brings us into our Essentials series. So we're going to cover what certifications are approved within the industry recognized credentials list for the state. But before we do that, this is a full certification pathway to the EC Council certification ecosystem. So if we look at this from left to right, and this is really how we tell our story, there are a number of these certifications. We work with schools, ministries, and enterprise organizations, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 organizations all over, to be able to help build pathways. But this is really our start to finish pathway. When we look at cybersecurity, it starts with the end user, right? The knowledge worker. How do we individually safely and secure our own assets? So that could be from anyone just surfing the internet to IoT devices within your home, or setting up your network, securing a password that's practical. It's not easily guessed or attained by malicious attackers. Also knowing when not to log into public networks, having things like a virtual private network, backing up your data on the cloud, a little bit of encryption. All of that really fits into our end user knowledge worker. That's our baseline skills to start students off. Even covering social media, right? Whatever you post on the internet often stays on the internet. So educating students from that perspective. Then we move on to the cyber novice realm, which is really where we're going to spend most of our time today. to answer the question I had mentioned earlier with people asking us, where do I get started and how do I start a cybersecurity career? We've developed the Essential Series, which are a certification series of 3 individual certifications focusing on network defense, ethical hacking, and digital forensics. So collectively, those 3 are the Essential Series, although each can be taken individually. And that's really what we call our cyber novice. So we're providing introductory entry-level concepts across really what we refer to as red team and blue team concepts. And although these are entry-level courses, they are going to be challenging for students. They're new concepts focused on cybersecurity, all different sorts of tools, elements, in case studies and scenarios, so they can figure out how does this pertain to what's going on in the industry today. And then it leads us into our technician level track, which is taking everything learned in the cyber novice tier and layering other elements such as disaster recovery, threat intelligence, cyber operations, SOC operations, or even incident response. We start to build on that cyber novice level and moving from the technician level into the rest of this track. It really takes us into our core red team and blue team certifications with Certified Network Defender and Certified Ethical Hacker. And as any profession, having a specialization is what most people really tend to focus on. So you see all of the specializations we have there. Just as a doctor would specialize in a certain field, we have the same mindset in cybersecurity, where building that secure foundation for offensive and defensive concepts, and then being able to pivot into a certain specialization to significantly contribute to an organization. And then following, a specialization, our executive level C-suite certification that's focused on governance, compliance, policy, and a number of other C-suite leadership elements in the cybersecurity fields and domains. So really, in a nutshell, that's our track. But we'll focus today on the industry recognized credentials from the state of Ohio. So what you're seeing here is the list of those recognized credentials, which if you're noticing the CSCU and the ECES certifications, those were part of the end user security tier that we just saw, as well as the Essential Series, which was part of the Cyber Novice. So really where we start off, 5 of the certifications on our certification track are positioned at that end user knowledge worker and cyber novice levels, which is really building a great foundation for students looking to get into cybersecurity. So with these approved lists, each of them has a specific code that's referenced on the website today. And we're always looking to help grow more courses as well, as it pertains to some of the emerging concepts such as cloud security or IoT, or even artificial intelligence. Those are all elements and areas we're working on to continue to educate students at an entry-level position. But those are also elements that are sprinkled in the Essential Series. Those are concepts that we cover in the Essential Series. So all of these do lead up to what you're seeing at the bottom: Certified Network Defender and Certified Ethical Hacker. So those are what we had looked at as our core certifications. Those are 2 of the 4 U.S. Department of Defense accredited credentials. They are very robust, very difficult certifications to obtain, but also very rewarding knowledge, skills, and tactics that are taught in a safe and secure environment through either of those classes. So moving on, I wanted to mention how we also really teach these courses that are approved. And it comes down to our platforms and services. So within EC Council, we use a combination of self-authored platforms and third-party platforms that are commonly used in education, such as let's say Vital Source is an ebook reader, or other lab platforms where we host our CyberRange content on. So we do provide e-courseware. In fact, most of our content is provisioned electronically, because there's some ADA features in there that we can really use and support students that need it, such as screen readers, enhanced text visibility enlargement, or even the capability to print. Our courses are fairly long. Some of our courses are up to 3,000 pages. Certified Ethical Hackers, I believe, a little bit over 3,000 pages. So a lot of tools, a lot of concepts, and we publish all of our lab manuals in addition to having all of the documentation fully hosted in our CyberRange. And that brings us to our labs. Within EC Council courses, typically 60% of the class is going to be done in the cyber range and spent in the cyber range. So we want students to grasp that knowledge, but ultimately we're providing a safe and secure environment that's a browser-based cyber range that is backended by a cloud service provider that links out to our data center that is enclosed with a hypervisor, so nothing can get out and nothing can get in. That leaves the students being able to work through these labs using tools and operating systems and a lot of technologies they wouldn't traditionally have access to, but in a safe and secure environment. We want them to understand a lot of these concepts by doing and actually performing in the cyber range to best understand the concepts and to best be positioned to attain an entry-level career. So in addition to the labs, we do have instructional videos. We'll get into those specifically for the Essential series. What's really neat about those certifications in particular is we publish all of the videos on YouTube for the video lectures. So we're going to cover that today. And again, you'll have some free takeaways of what you can utilize in preparation for the Essential series courses. And then things like exam prep and the actual certification. I will say that I'm always so glad to see states growing their industry recognized credentials list. Industry credentials and badges and what we often refer to as stackable credentials are great ways for students to take advantage of training and education and certification, whether it's through an after-school program or career and technology education and so on and so forth. We do have a growing list of students that are taking dual enrollment programs as well. And there's even many programs out there that are allowing students to graduate with their high school and almost their associates, or in fact, sometimes their associates program, which I'm very jealous of. I wish they had those when I was back in school. But there's some really neat programs out there, and we're always exploring ways where we can add these resources in. And that leads us to EC Council Academia. So again, I had mentioned at the beginning of the session, I have the privilege of leading our academic division through the EC Council Academia Partner Program. And really, this is a program that is open to any academic institution at the secondary or post-secondary level, and in many cases, not-for-profit education entities. So our focus is taking all of the professional certification courses that EC Council offers, typically in a continuing education or workforce development format, and repurposing that for semester-based education, or maybe a program that's a little bit longer than a week or two, so we can focus on having students digest the content, work within the proper lab ranges and modules, understand the content because they're often learning it for the first time, and be confident as they work towards either the final exam for their class or the industry certification exam through EC Council. So this program is a vehicle for any partner, any school to be a partner. That's a free process. We unlock all of our resources. So that includes faculty evaluation content. That includes access to all of our e-courseware, syllabus, lesson plans, our course shells, instructor slides, our videos. We unlock everything for schools. And then faculty can review that and make the decision on what certification course might be best for their particular program. There is a cost associated with this program when it comes to student resources. So the program itself is free. Even the testing processes around it, it's free to become an EC Council testing center. So if you're looking to administer testing for any of the EC Council certifications, especially the ones that we had saw that are approved on the state list, then great. It's free to get set up as a testing center and designate as many proctors as you like. However, I did want to ensure that we have significant discounts for students. There is a cost to the students for the certification exam. And for things like lab technologies, it's significantly less than anything you would see in the corporate or commercial or government segment. So our pricing for our academic partners is traditionally the lowest pricing that we offer within the company. So we're happy to share more. There's a link in there that covers where to find out more information about EC Council Academia. That is at ecouncil.org/academia. You'll see a link to a curriculum guide, which covers everything that we do course by course, even outside of certification, things like events or different types of technologies or softwares that we publish and configure to make sure that cybersecurity education is fun and make sure we can challenge students and ultimately build that pathway for them to become successful in today's industry. So yeah, again, the link is going to be in that deck, which we'll provide after today's session as well. But again, that's ecouncil.org/academia for the URL. So this is some extended information on the actual partnership, as well as some of the partner benefits. One of the things that I didn't mention is we do provide certification scholarships for faculty. In fact, the Essential series that we're referring to today, which was again, Network Defense Essentials, Ethical Hacking Essentials, and Digital Forensics Essentials, those 3 certifications are always offered free for any faculty through our EC Council Academia Partner Program for on-site testing. We have availability for on-site testing where our partners can administer the proctor, a qualified proctor can administer the exams, or we also have what we call RPS or remote proctor services where students can pay a little bit more of a fee, a small fee, and then they can test out remotely or virtually with an on-screen proctor, and faculty can do the same and typically get a significant discount off of that. We also highlight our programs, work collaboratively with our partners for different types of events or information awareness sessions, both for the student and the institution, but also for the parents oftentimes. There's a large part of our division that focuses on educating students and parents at the secondary level, so they know exactly what their students are going to be working on and getting into in terms of the technologies. When you hear a course like ethical hacking, if you're really not aware of the nature of ethical hacking, the definition, what that means for a professional, what that means in the industry, it can have a lot of negative connotations with the actual word hacking, but our goal is through safe and secure practices, a code of conduct, and really a very broad and vast member base that is a group of white hat hackers, white hat being ethical hackers that are really focused on contributing, defending, and securing in the best integrity of keeping sure all these technologies are done in a legal manner and again with integrity. So that's really the nature of our partnership. And again, the steps to register, it's about a 5-minute process. We have a number of partners in the state of Ohio, from secondary institutions to school districts to a lot of workforce and continuing ed focused not-for-profits that are focused on career technologies and career development, as well as some of the leading cybersecurity colleges and universities. All right, so actually, before we get into questions, I want to give you some visuals and make this kind of an interactive and fun. So I want to provide some general details about what we just covered in the Essential series. So again, on the EC Council Academia site, there is a video that describes our division as well as a curriculum guide. So that curriculum guide, if you click on that, it's going to have a lot of what we do, as I was mentioning, and we'll focus on the Essential series specifically and what topics are covered. So again, this is a public document. It'll go through EC Council at a glance, our mission, education solutions. I'm going to go through this pretty fast here, just so we could focus on a couple of elements. We've already reviewed our accreditations and alignments, but we'll also review our mission here and the benefits. So this is really everything we do in a nutshell: scholarships, evaluation resources, program development, integration, stackable credentials, and really the list goes on. Now, let's actually fast forward to the individual courses, and we'll take a look here at Network Defense Essentials. And I know I'm going full speed ahead here, but just bear with me. So Network Defense Essentials, this is the first course within the Essential series, and it's what we call a blue team course or defensive course, right? So we're first going to cover network security fundamentals. We're going to get into identification, authentication, and authorization, cover through a number of security controls and protocols, and then we'll get into wireless technology, mobile IoT, and some crypto, leading up to network traffic monitoring. Now, again, I had mentioned entry level, but if you think of the concept of network traffic monitoring, your students are actually going to be monitoring the network to make sure it's up and running. There's no glitches, there's no downtime. They're also going to be monitoring the traffic. They're going to be using tools to diagnose how much traffic is going across the network. Is that normal? Is there anything suspicious there? So the overall integrity of the network is covered in this class using a number of different tools and information security concepts. And again, this is a certification program, and the exam numbers are listed in the curriculum guide, but it's important to note that each of the essential series is 75 questions, 2 hours. So as you're going through, if you're wondering what's the preparation to become certified, all of the essential series exams are identical from the amount of questions and the amount of time. So moving on from network defense essentials, we have our offensive course, ethical hacking essentials. This is quite honestly what gets students pretty excited if they think of the concept of ethical hacking. But these, again, are not easy courses, even though they're entry level. The students are going to have to put some work into getting certified, right? Into really understanding these concepts. So this is going to cover a more offensive approach, such as the fundamentals of information security, ethical hacking. They're going to be studying threats and vulnerabilities, even into password cracking techniques and countermeasures. So for example, I was mentioning earlier in the session, just in an end user security perspective, using a virtual private network, right? A VPN, whether it's on your phone or your PC, and how that can prevent your information or malicious attackers from accessing your information over a public network and monitoring the packets going back and forth between your device and the network, and ultimately stealing your password and using tools to do that, right? There's a whole list of best practices and tools and resources in this course students are going to be working in, as well as web application hacking, wireless attacks, and really leading up to penetration testing fundamentals. So again, a very offensive course, but the key here is doing all of this in a safe and secure environment and knowing where the industry is positioning entry-level job roles. A lot of these tools, a lot of these tactics and practices, the industry is training up their organization on and making sure they have skilled professionals that understand these concepts so they can thwart security, really malicious attacks and exploits. So moving on to the final Essential Series course, we have Digital Forensics Essentials. This is more of a blue team course as well, that is focused on the investigation process of digital forensics. So more of, I would say, the cybercrime theme, focusing on that whole step-by-step process, data forensics, data acquisition and duplication, Windows forensics, network forensics, even going on the dark web, which if you look into the dark web and how it's structured and how it's built, the legal policies and enforcements per country are extremely difficult to enforce on the dark web. So a lot of this is covered in Digital Forensics Essentials, in which we've actually seen this course covered in accounting degrees and criminal justice degrees, which is really neat. So yeah, those 3 courses are there in our curriculum guide. Also, we're always happy to set you up with access to review the courses, and that really brings us to the ebook platform, which is currently on VitalSource. And what we use within EC Council, you're looking at our Ethical Hacking Essentials course, and this is covering all of the modules and the glossary and some references there. But if we look at Ethical Hacking Fundamentals, these are very visual-oriented courses. We do provide through the partner program the EPUB files to these courses, so you can access those files and upload them into any ebook reader you prefer. We're just showing this on VitalSource, but it'll cover a lot of visual aids when it comes to understanding the content, the module flow, excuse me. So we see here the cyber kill chain methodology. So and what that entails, and it's really neat concepts, introductory concepts that are going to be very interesting to students. And what we hope is that students are going to be more secure better positioned to defend themselves as individuals or their network at home, and ultimately be prepared to get certified and enter the workforce. So again, we are happy to enable access to this content and ensure preliminary demo access. And then for what we're referring to on our lab platform, all of the courses that we offer, with the exception of a small portion, I think it's about 2, have labs associated with them, have a full cyber range. So this is the actual network, and we'll go ahead and open one of these. This is the actual lab network where students are going to be spending the majority of their time working in virtual machines. So there is, for the Essential Series, there is a small fee for the lab. It's $35 for our partners that are focused on educating students for 6 months. So 6 months, unlimited access. The students are going to get, and it's per student. We issue a code, and that code is focused on a user profile. And the lab is going to give the students access to a number of different virtual machines, tools, tactics, and step-by-step instructions. So I had mentioned earlier in the session that really when users go through this lab, they're learning the concepts for the first time. So we know that a lot of students are in the learning mode. So you're going to see in just a moment as this lab builds, there's a couple of step-by-step processes, and there's a series of exercises and tasks that are structured where students can literally check a box every time they complete a certain segment of the lab activity. So we'll take a look here now. It looks like it's almost about loading. Typically, we see anywhere from a minute to a minute and a half where our lab is being built. But we're going to see, yeah, the virtual machine. Here we go. Those machines are starting. And students can access this from anywhere. I mean, they can access this on a Chromebook, whether at home or at school. There is, again, these are structured as online secure cyber range. So you don't have to worry about anything basically leak out into your open network, right? It's all enclosed, all with a process and a purpose in place of keeping the security as the top priority. So if we look at ethical hacking fundamentals, first off, there's a virtual range. There's a virtual machine here, which is a Windows 10 machine. We're going to go ahead and activate that machine. But you also see here, there's a Parrot security machine, which is a Linux-based machine. Let's try that again. There's a Linux-based machine. I entered that twice. And then there's a Server 2019, Server 2016, another Ubuntu Linux machine, and an Android machine. Students can actually toggle back and forth to these machines at any time, and you're going to have the full access to the virtual machine in this range. So if we look back at our Windows 10 machine, we circle back here. Now I'm in the machine, and you can see this lab is providing me with a scenario, a clear objectives, plural, and the overview of ethical hacking. And now it's asking me to perform a series of tasks. So the first one is perform passive footprinting to gather information about the target. And it's giving me some bullet points to help me along the way, in which I then get to my first lab. So each of these, again, has the step-by-step instructions for students to go through, and they're checking the box each time they complete that task, and they're seeing the associated screenshots with some helpful hints along the way. So this is really in the best interest of having students learn the complete content and go through these tasks and be able to kind of reflect on what they've just done. They do have full access to launch these virtual machines within the 6 months term anytime they'd like to. And I will say that this is a cyber range. There are some features in terms of text enhancement, but because of the long tools and long command lines, in the nature of this platform, it is not a fully ADA compliant platform. It's not a software as a service item. It is a full virtual range virtual machine element with tool outcomes that could produce long command lines, and tools that are licensed and unlicensed that may not necessarily always work with a screen reader, for example. So I did want to set that expectation. There are many workarounds that we do to cover certain knowledge topic level elements that are also functions of the lab, as well as we record all of the videos for our lab overviews as well to be able to share with students also. So moving away from the iLabs environment, or what we call our cyber range within EC Council, I did want to mention a few other elements before we open it up for questions. So I'd mentioned these videos are available on YouTube. So we do have, as one of EC Council's massive open online course series, all of the essential series are available on YouTube. And this is going to give the full instructional lectures here. And it's going to have one of our EC Council instructors here, Kevin King, on the right-hand side. And you can see all of the ethical hacking elements here on the right-hand side from each of the modules and how each of those videos is kind of segmented. So a lot of great information and some free takeaways and a lot of informative concepts that you can kind of walk through. So very intuitive videos, and we hope you have some time to log on to those and learn something from either one of the 3 Essential Series courses. Now, finally, we do have what we call the EC Council Exam Center. This is where certification testing is processed within our certification body. So the EC Council Exam Center is available for anyone to set up and register. Those that have purchased the voucher and have a proctor on site, or that scheduled their remote proctor services virtually, are welcome to register on the EC Council platform in the exam center. And this is where all of the multiple choice testing is going to be administered. The Essential Series is a multiple choice exam, although some EC Council exams are practical based and have a series of lab components that open up that are performance-based assessments to ensure that the integrity of the knowledge, skills, and those abilities are represented in those members that hold that certification credential. So last but not least, I will say, if you've probably already been there, but the list of credentials, you'll see the ones that we had listed on here. These will also point to the EC Council Academia webpage, which is the webpage we originally started at. And if there's questions or information on how this program functions, other schools that have run these programs, other colleges, universities that have run these programs, we're always happy to help. We have a number of academic specialists that are here in our Tampa, Florida office, and some are remote across the United States that can help provide some guidance, evaluation access, and resources in terms of the Essential Series courses specifically, and how those can best help your students. We do understand a lot of the time that faculty are eager to review and take these certifications prior to offering them to students. And at the same time, there may be students that you're working with that many have no cybersecurity experience at all, or maybe haven't even taken an IT course. We try to provide with these 3 resources a great learning environment for students to also work in groups, whether it's in class or in outside of class and study groups, and provide the resources where they can work collaboratively and also help each other learn along the way in some of the videos and the e-courseware and with the labs, and even with some of the extracurricular activities like the Capture the Flag events that we run. So with that, I will we'll go to and open it up to questions. I know a lot of information covered, so just as a quick recap, we took a look at who EC Council is as a certification body and an EdTech organization. We looked at some of the accreditations that EC Council is known for. We looked at EC Council Academia, the partner program that allows any institution in the secondary or post-secondary realm and some not-for-profit education entities to register for free and gain access to evaluation resources and decide what certification courses may fit for them and their programs and their initiatives. And then we looked at our certification track, and then full circle back to the Essential Series and what the very nature of those programs were meant for. And lastly, I will say that a big part of the development of the Essential Series was focused on some of the U.S. Department of Labor, if you're familiar with the Occupational Network Online, the ONET job roles. So things like the network computer specialist or help desk technician. Those are the areas where we're really aiming for students to really be qualified for after the Essential Series courses. So with that, I'd be happy to open it up for questions. And Aaron, if there's anything you'd like to add before we do, and, whether it's me monitoring those questions in the chat or just looking in the chat and kind of answering those or taking people off mute, or looking forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Wesley. We really appreciate you presenting today. It was a lot of great information. The only question that's in the chat right now is just asking about, so regardless of the platform they have personally or the one that the school uses, your lab actually gives them access and experience with multiple platforms. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, great question. So if we circle back to the lab range, this is a browser-based range. So each of the modules that you launch, you'll see I'm just in my Chrome browser here. So if you're using Chrome or any other browser, Safari, etc., you're going to have access to these virtual machines. So this is a cloud-based license for 6 months that you'll have access to all of these machines. And it's really neat because you don't have to have the software on site at school. You don't have to have server racks, etc. It's all virtualized, and your students will get access to many of the resources. As I was saying, many of the resources and tools that they may not traditionally have access to. So yeah, to answer the question, yes, these are all cloud-based virtual machines that are provisioned through a 6-month license through a browser-based cloud service provider, and ultimately our iLabs interface.
And then it looks like there's one more question. It says also Azure, an advanced program, et cetera, will be taught there. I'm not sure exactly what that's asking.
Sure. I think that might be referring to Azure, Microsoft Azure. They're Microsoft's cloud service provider. So we have a number of cloud technologies that are added into a series that are spread across a series of our courses. The Essential Series is one of them, but we also offer in all of EC Council courses, it's important to mention our vendor neutral. So where you're going to see Microsoft Azure, you're also going to see GCP, and you're going to see AWS. So we approach it from a vendor neutral perspective. So yes, those technologies would be available through the lab platform, depending on the specific course. You might see a little bit more, focus on one versus the other, again, depending on the course and topic, but we will be releasing as part of the Essential Series, ultimately a cloud-specific certification as well this year within EC Council. So we'll be happy to share more information on that.
This was great. Thank you so much, Wesley. I did put into the chat for anyone who's interested the 2 URLs, one for you to get your certificate for attending this session right now, and then also the feedback survey for the overall days, so that you can give us feedback. So hopefully when we provide something like this again in the future, we'll be able to make it even better than what it is already. If there's no other questions, enjoy your afternoon. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. And we will see you all later. Thank you.
Thanks again for having me, and wishing everyone a great rest of the day. Thank you.